Welcome to You Are the Answer, the podcast that helps you reconnect with the most powerful healer you know, your own body. I'm Naomi Mills, chiropractor, healthcare professional, and believer in the natural intelligence within us all. In this podcast, I explore what it means to trust your body, decode its signals, and take ownership of your well-being without quick fixes or health fads. Whether you're just beginning your journey or deep in transformation, I'm here to guide you back to the truth. You are not broken. You are the answer. So welcome to episode 20 of the You Are the Answer podcast. I can't believe I've managed to consistently release one of these every week for 20 weeks. I'm giving myself a small pat on the back for that. Whether you've listened to all the episodes or whether this is your first one, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. You know, creating this podcast is something that has been in my mind and my heart for years, actually. And I just didn't know where to begin. I wrote my book, I published it, I carried on working. It was always there in the back of my mind. There was definitely some fear around putting myself out there. And then one day I just made the decision to go ahead and do it, because what was the worst that could happen? Nobody listened, nobody noticed. Well, it's not going to kill me. But I had enough self-awareness to know that if I never started and I never tried, I would wish that I had. And with anything in life, you do it for yourself, first and foremost, out of just passion and love and just wanting to do something that feels right and aligned. And then with repetition and practice, it becomes easier and more joyful and hopefully gains some traction. And that was true when I started running regularly. It was true when I started my new practice in a city where I knew no one in the middle of a global pandemic. It's setting an intention and showing up with consistency. And it's the consistency that is the unsexy, boring part of life. But you can apply that to all of the health behaviors and lifestyle things that we've talked about in this podcast and that you know that you could be doing and are not doing yet. So I'm going to start this episode with an invitation to you is what is something that your soul has been crying out for, whether it's a physical thing or a creation thing, a sport, a hobby, anything that your inner being wants to experience and you're holding yourself back. And my invitation for you is that you make the commitment to move forward and just get started, even in a very small way. And that is ultimately how nervous system regulation has to work. It is repetition, it is consistency. I always say you cannot fix a human being because we are always alive, you're always living. So you're under physical, chemical, and emotional stress all the time. It's like a car. You can repair a car. You can't fix it so that it's stationary and nothing ever degrades unless you never ever drove it again. You never used it. So health and well-being and vitality, these are not stuck points. We are just always aiming for what is the best way that I can show up for my life and my health today, and then it's tomorrow and the next day. And just like with this podcast, if you just begin somewhere and you just make the commitment to do it consistently, you'll look back and you'll have weeks of experience, weeks of little increments, and they all build up into something really remarkable. So to end this kind of arc of the Embodiment series where we've talked about body-brain connection, taking care of your central nervous system with the body as the focus, trendy wellness word, but actually as a skill and a way of living where you learn to listen to your body, regulate your nervous system, and ultimately act from clarity rather than fear. And if you've been listening to this series, what you've really been doing, I hope, is learning to come home to yourself. And so today I want to step back and look at the whole arc of what we covered, because when you see it together, something becomes powerfully clear. And that is, your body is not the problem that you need to fix, but rather an intelligence that you need to learn how to listen to. Most of us have been trained throughout our lives to live from the neck up, in our brains, where we analyse and we worry and we compare and we search for answers outside of ourselves. And in the meantime, your body is constantly sending you signals in terms of tension, your breath, gut instinct, your energy levels, fatigue, excitement, and resistance. But because you were never taught how to interpret those signals, it's very easy to end up overriding them. And when we override the system long enough, that becomes our new normal. It becomes what we know. And so early in this series, I explored the idea that safety is not always a story that we tell ourselves. Sometimes it's a sensation that we're feeling. We talked about walking on the broken glass, something that we've been programmed to fear and think, why on earth would I want to do that? Rather than being open to the lessons and the experience that that discomfort might bring. And that's how embodiment can take you from overthinking into presence, what it is to be present. It's a word we use a lot, but it's not always something that we understand. And that's certainly been true for myself. We then talked about firewalking and challenging practices, understanding that regulation and resilience and self-trust, ultimately, it isn't something you can get next day delivery, have first and then do. It's built through lived experience. And every time that you do something challenging and realize that you were safe, your nervous system is going to update its story about what's possible. We also explored what happens when your nervous system does begin to shift and reorganize. And we talked about something called the healing crisis, which is when you may feel worse before you feel better, even though you are on a healing journey. And that is simply because your system is starting to recalibrate. Healing is not a straight or upward process. It's kind of a wiggly roller coaster type event. And one of the ways to ride the roller coaster was through this connected conscious breathing, holotrophic breathwork, which we also talked about in this series arc, where most of the information from your vagus nerve, your survival mechanism, travels from body to brain and not the other way around. And so this was about changing your breath, your posture, and your movement to allow your mental state to shift and create a bridge of communication between your conscious and your unconscious mind. And when I did that, it really brought me some deep, meaningful insights that allowed me to tweak my life in ways I never would have thought, that ultimately really benefited my emotional well-being more than anything else. Throughout this arc, I hope it's hit home that self-empowerment isn't about controlling everything in your life. Good nervous system regulation is not about holding control. It's about learning how to find paths to safety and take a breath so that you can respond to life rather than react to it. And just creating that little bit of space, that gap that can allow you to choose your response. We've also explored how long-term chemical stress in the body, this chemistry of stress, the adrenaline, the cortisol, all of that, is accelerating your aging. Here is my attempt to give you some compelling reasons why you might want to care about this sooner rather than later. understanding that nervous system regulation isn't just about feeling calm, but also affecting our immunity, our inflammation, hormone balances, resilience, and aging. And the key to all of this has been finding ways to create safety from within, learning to tune into the body, starting to create habits where you consciously notice what's happening in your physical self as well as your mental self, and reframing self-care not as indulgence, but as a completely vital way of taking care of the body that you've been given, the system that we were created under. And it's a little bit like having your car and never ever taking it for an MOT or a service or changing the oil. You would never expect to be given, and we're not machines, this is not where I'm going with this, but they make a good analogy. You would never take a car and expect to drive it until it gives up on you at 150,000 miles, let's say, but do absolutely nothing to it. You wouldn't be surprised if it conks out much, much sooner. So we understand this in certain areas of our lives, but we don't connect that to ourselves. We're not thinking enough about our sleep, our boundaries, our connection, our presence, our movement, our breath. We are too busy, in actual fact, in our thoughts to pay enough attention to our physical signs as well. So when you look across all of these episodes, a pattern emerges. We know that your body senses safety. It stores stress. It releases tension. It learns through experience. It guides your decisions. And it repairs itself when conditions allow. So in other words, your body already contains the intelligence it needs for healing. And embodiment simply means living in relationship with your body, rather than in opposition to it. It means living in relationship with your body, rather than in opposition to it. And at the front of all my new client booklets that I give out in my chiropractic practice, that's why it says, make your body a friendlier place to be. It's about embracing the natural wisdom and intelligence that is within you, rather than pushing through exhaustion. Now you can notice the fatigue and you can make amendments. Instead of chasing certainty, you can sense what feels aligned to you and make different choices. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this arc. I hope that it has brought some new understandings for you, perhaps deepened your understanding. It may have brought you a little bit of motivation to explore these concepts further, remembering, of course, that you're not going to feel motivated when you're in stress. So you just have to take that leap anyway, in the understanding that the reward will come at the end, once you've had the experience and you have found the clarity. And certainly in my own life, what really changed was once I found that sense of regulation and well-being and energy and calm, that was the only time I could then protect it. I could set down boundaries that didn't interrupt it, but not before. So I hope that you found today's roundup episode insightful. I hope it's pulled all the threads together for you. And Arc 3, we're going body to brain. We're delving into mindset. And episode 1 is something I feel deeply passionate about. So it's going to be episode 21 of the podcast. Why I hate the phrase, keep calm and carry on. So join me for that one next week. Thank you for joining me on You Are the Answer. If today's episode sparked something in you, share it with someone you care about and leave a review to help others find their way back to their body too. For more tools, inspiration and resources to support your journey, head to www.youaretheanswer.co.uk. And until next time, stay connected, stay curious, and remember, You are the answer, and you always have been.